All right, guys, we're going to give this a whirl. DV just did an IOP program of some heads that Eric did, LS3 stuff. And I said to myself, that's a great idea. Why don't I do that with the Promaxx? And since this ancient computer already had the Mission Impossible 318 heads thrown in there, I said I thought it would be a good idea, or at least a fun idea, to compare something that I spent a ton of time developing versus something I developed in a weekend. Okay, so this is the Promaxx 200's versus DV Mission Impossible 318 heads that I spent an unbelievable amount of time on. Okay, this is our finished numbers on the Promaxx. This is all the info you need to put into the program. Okay, we got decent looking curves. Just looking at the curves, it really looks like similar to a Dart 200, really. But it does have the D-shaped exhaust that Dart 200 doesn't. All right, I'm going to go real close to this. Hopefully you guys can see all this info. Okay, 202 valve, throat diameter, port length, bore diameter it was tested on. All right, port volume intake 211.5, exhaust 72, 1.6 exhaust. Exhaust throat 1.35, exhaust length 2.9. You got to do all your radiuses and heights. Okay, and all the way over here, this is compression ratio is 11, 7,000 RP, 700 lift max. We're probably not going to go that much. Stan probably would yell at me if I didn't tell you what version it is. It's 4.3.2, which I think is the last one I downloaded. Knowing Stan, he's changed it since last time I got it. Okay, so these are all our flows, and if you go through all the way to here, it gives you a bunch of different info, including what's in black, which is our exhaust to intake flow ratio. They say what you need 75. We're about 70 all the way through the curve. So does that mean we could have made the exhaust bigger? Yeah, we could have, but it's already a 72 cc. It's not really small. And with a pipe, it flows pretty well for what we're doing. It is a street ride. And we're going against the DV Mission Impossible 318 head, right? Much smaller port, only 140 cc. Much smaller valve, 1.78. Same bore because it was tested on the same thing. Exhaust port volume 61.5, much smaller exhaust port, right? Okay, throat diameter for the intake 1.56. Throat exhaust diameter 1.29. Intake port length 4.82, much shorter than the Chevy, and exhaust length 3.21, much longer. It's always interesting to go heads up against two different designs. I think it's fascinating. Here's all our heights and radiuses. I made that at 11:1, so we were hoping to get some decent compression out of the Mission Impossible, which I haven't heard anything about, by the way. I'm a little more than upset. I put that much effort into it, and nothing's happened to it since. I haven't been able to get DV on the phone. Hope he's okay. In any case, this is what we were doing here. I thought I got more than 214 out of the Mission Impossible. I don't remember though. In any case, we'll take a look at it, what we got, because it's in the computer already. How do we do on the exhaust? 174. That sounds about right. That's a pretty decent exhaust flow, right? With it's a 1.5 exhaust valve. Oh, you know what I need to show you guys? I also need to show you page 2. Okay, there's the swirl for the Mission Impossible. Very high swirl. Now let's change pages and take a look at the swirl for the Promaxx. Okay, swirl for the Promaxx. Because I have too many lifts entered, the last couple are all the same. They don't really flatten out. We were done with our testing at 800. Okay, we're comparing test 1 to test 2. Here's our info. Our Promaxx max is out at 290 CFM. Our Mission Impossible 216 at 800. Okay, making sure we got the right two tests. Now we're just gonna. We already did our calculate. Let's hit our graph. Okay, we can go heads up. Now, obviously, one port is a lot bigger than the other port, and with a lot bigger valve, but the curves are quite similar, which tells us a lot. Okay, they're both pretty good for what they are. Are they both fantastic? No. But they're not bad. Remember, the Promaxx was supposed to be 600 CFM, give or take, with a 202, which is kind of tight. It does flow 290 with a 202. I did a little looking on Stan's site. There are, I really couldn't find any 202 heads that flow 290. They probably exist, but somebody really had to put some effort into them. All right, we're doing CFM per square inch. We're going to calculate. We're going to graph. Okay, CFM per square inch. Fairly similar curves. Okay, so we're doing fairly similar work with both of them. Doesn't mean it's good. Okay, SAE coefficient of discharge. Very similar curves. We do have a nice hit on our exhaust with the thick line. Thick line is the Promaxx. No, I'm sorry. The thick line is the Mission Impossible. All right, I spent a lot of work on those exhaust ports trying to get them just right so we can get some power out of them. The Promaxx, the top two cuts are stock. So all I did is I worked the chamber a little bit and I did the radius down to the throat. Okay, mean port velocity. This is super important. Look how close they are. Thick is the Mission Impossible. We actually got better speed on the Mission Impossible heads than the Promaxx, but they're also different applications, right? The Mission Impossible is 1 horse per cube, but we figured, you can hear Liffy banging around in the kitchen. She's going to cook for a change. Yay! And we were hoping to get like 500 out of the Mission Impossible with a tunnel ram. Don't know if that'll ever happen. Okay, port energy. Now our exhausts are pretty darn close. They're right on top of each other, but as far as port energy, the thin line, which is our Promaxx, does way better. Does way better. Okay, we got usable, probably 23 foot-pounds per inch of port. DV explains it like the energy from a muzzle energy from a projectile. Okay, now this is port energy density. It takes the port length out of the equation. So how do we do? Well, if you take that out of the equation, it looks like the DV ones, the DV Mission Impossible 318 heads actually do better on the intake and the exhaust. The exhaust energy on the thick lines is 34 foot-pounds. That's a pound in exhaust. Effective velocity is the velocity at the valve seat. Not too far off. A little slow on both intakes. I would like to see them a little bit higher than that, but not terrible. Okay, very telling graphs, right? We have a decent curve on our Promaxx, but our swirl curve for the Mission Impossible just goes off the chart. It's very, very high. Probably too high. Okay, I would definitely, I actually like, well, depending upon the application, I like one curve for one application, one curve for the other. And our effective SAE coefficient of discharge, the curves are pretty close to being on top of each other. Okay, now I think I have all this right. Right, this is going to be for our Promaxx. Mean port area 2.4, bore 4.165, stroke 375. That gives us our 408. Okay, we were planning on 7,000 RPM, which is right where we are. How did we do? Compression ratio 11 to 1. Mean piston speeds 4,000. That's okay. CFM peak was 286. We know we got 292 out of it, but we're not doing that for this program. Best torque output 584. I'd love to see that. Cylinder head port area limitation 600 and change. Cylinder head airflow horsepower limitation 700 and change. Torque per cubic inch 1.43. Torque per liter 87.2. Horsepower per cube 1.7. That's no joke. That's way better than I would have expected. Now, is that something that's feasible? Well, we'll find out. If he gets a dyno, we will definitely find out. All right, Mach 0.55, intake port velocity 619. That actually sounds pretty good to me. Now, I guess I could go through and load everything up for the Mission Impossible. Why don't we do that? Alright, I think I got all this set up. We didn't change the Mach number. Our port area is much smaller. 3.94. Can't remember exactly what 318 bore is. I think it's at the 3.91. I'm not going to look it up. 322, close enough. Alright, 6,400 RPM shift. How do we do as far as... We got 11 to 1 compression. Piston speed's much slower because it's a way less of a stroke. Okay, CFM was 214. Best torque 462. Cylinder head horsepower 467. Cylinder head airflow horsepower limitation 543. That always sounds high to me. Torque per cube 1.43, not bad. Torque per liter 87.2. Horsepower per cube 1.68, not bad. Okay, not terrible. Of course, you got to have a really good torque master cam or appropriate cam for it. I didn't change this on the bottom. Let's see if we change this on the bottom, if it makes anything different. Okay, now I'm not used to this program. I think Stan did these to calculate the CCs that you should have. Let's see what it does. Alright, sorry I can't give you more info on that, guys. I don't know. Stan's more than welcome to answer questions like that in our comments. In any case, two fairly successful attempts. I did want to do an IOP on the Promaxx 200's because the guy I'm doing this for is one of DV's students, so he knows about the program, and he wanted me to run through it. So I will be, he'll be taking a look at this video. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Have a good night.